Today I'll be inspecting this nice looking 15 jewel 18 size pocket watch made by the Peoria Watch Company. They had a large factory that was located in Peoria, Illinois between the dates of 1885 and 1895. They produced a line of high quality railroad watches and the famous anti-magnetic pocket watch. This one is in a nice quality nickel case. And runs if you rotate it slightly, a usual sign indicating it may be out of beat. Bezel has the serial number stamped on the inside here. Crystal has some damage, several heavy chips on the edges. Looks like someone has done some heavy rough buffing on the bezel. It's left heavy scratches here and has removed some of the decorative details in areas. These straight lines here are signs of a motorized buffing wheel. Up close, it can be seen the name Peoria is hand-painted on the dial. Minute track and Roman numerals are hand-painted as well. Hand-painted dials took skill to produce and always have a warm artistic touch to them. Enamel is damaged here on the seconds track. Hairline cracks here at the intersection of the three enameled pieces. This reddish color on the dial next to the second hand looks like rust. It's a double sunk dial. These were made by soldering three pieces of different thicknesses together after enameling, creating a dial with three distinct surface levels. They were more difficult to manufacture and were used on high-quality pocket watches. It looks fairly good for being around 125 years old. Winding mechanism seems to function okay. Setting lever is a little difficult to swing out. It doesn't fit the center of the slot milled in the case for it. It seems to function as designed. Rust damage on the setting lever. That's never a good sign. Protect the dial with a thick layer of plastic so as to prevent any damage to it. Second hand lifts off easy. Nice silveroid case. Remove the movement. A nice piece of history here. Up close, rust damage can be seen on this plate screw head. Some small nicks and scratches on the plate in areas. Rust and tool damage on this case screw head. Missing a plate screw here, and a reddish rust-colored stain where the screw head was. An early serial number puts it to about 1890 for its production date. Tool damage on this case screw head. This screw looks to be in fair shape. The regulator for the balance. It's turned full to the fast position. No more adjustment left. Not a good sign. There's some type of red rust colored substance in the screw slot that doesn't belong. Balance pivot is dry. Looks like either dirt on the pivot, or it could be wobbling in the jewel hole. Rust damage on this regulator arm. I see these worm-like patterns often on polished steel that has been exposed to moisture. Tool damage here next to the screw head from using a screwdriver that was too wide, and damage to the screw slot from a screwdriver slipping off it several times. More rust damage. Rust pitting damage on the surface of this screw head that has been cleaned off sometime in the past. Balance wheel has a wobble to it. Up close, it almost contacts the balance cock. Loosen the hairspring. I'll remove the balance so that it doesn't get damaged. Oh, this balance cock screw is only catching by a thread or two. Seems too loose and too short. It doesn't look like a balance cock screw. I just found the missing plate screw. Sign of a butcher here. Remove the K-screws. Nickel plating is failing in areas on this dust cover. A heavy nick here. Pry mark damage here. This is why I use this type of screwdriver. A little easier on these brass dust covers than a steel tool. These letdown tools are to be used to let down the mainspring power prior to disassembly. These are shop-made letdown tools I made years ago. We all had to make our own tools before we were allowed to work on watches. I see a lot of people today who have never fabricated a tool that are working on watches. This one is the right size. A letdown tool and screwdriver is all that is needed to release the power on the mainspring. Letdown tool goes here where the stem fits, and the screwdriver will hold the click in the open position while letting down the mainspring. Dial is held in with 3 dial screws. Well, it should be. This dial is missing one of the screws. And this screw head has half the head broke off of it. Over-tighten these to the point of breaking a screw head can cause stress on the dial and cause the enamel to get hairline cracks in it. Another sign of a butcher. Interesting. Dial has been reworked at some point in time. Solder holding the double sunk layers together has been replaced with some type of adhesive. This stuff could break away during service and lodge in the gears of the watch. This yellowing indicates a high-acid material. High-acid environments cause rust on a pocket watch. Rust on the click spring and on the click screw head. Some metal burrs on the back side of one of the pillar posts. Tool marks on the click. some foreign particles. Some of these could be from the stuff flaking off the back side of the dial. This rust on the setting lever is still active. Dial washer has seen better days. It's almost cracked in half. An unknown deceased bug. I wonder if some of this rust damage is from bugs leaving their deposits. More chunks from the back side of the dial. A dial chunk in the gears here. Another deceased bug. This one has a green corrosion looking deposit around it. There's a green deposit next to that first bug found as well. From what I am seeing, it's going to need to be hand cleaned and derusted by hand before it's put through the watch cleaner. Not sure what's going on here, but it's clear this pillar post isn't seated to the main plate all the way. This one is. A piece of paper can be slipped between the pillar and the plate. Not good. Hour wheel, minute wheel, cannon pinion. Plate screws. Using a soft tool to help separate the plates here prevents tool marks. Third wheel, fourth wheel, center wheel. Clean the jewel surfaces. Peg the old oil off the jewels so I can inspect. Surface damage on this jewel. This jewel has some heavy chips and scratches on it. This jewel is cracked and has some heavy scratches in it. Heavy rust damage on the center wheel pinion. This rust damage on these pinion leaves will cause the main wheel teeth to wear. Also cause uneven power to be delivered to the movement. It will never be a good timekeeper using this pinion. Escape wheel, pallet fork. Third wheel jewel is serviceable. Fourth wheel jewel has a small scratch, but is serviceable. Escape wheel jewel is a replacement. Someone has installed it incorrectly using some type of punch tool to deform the brass setting. It's functional, but it's set in here cocked sideways. Pallet fork jewel has a chip in it. Chips in jewels don't happen during regular use of a watch. They're caused by the pivot not being aligned in its hole, and someone tightening the plate screws on it. This type of work causes broken and bent pivots along with chipped jewels. Looking close, you can see the escape wheel jewel is not parallel to the plate surface. Never should have been left tilted like this. Most of these jewels will need to be replaced. Now to inspect these balance jewels. Good shape other than some dried oil residue. Separate the balance from the balance cock. Jewels appear to be in good shape. Mating surface of the balance cock has been modified. Surface of the metal has been deformed to increase inshake of the balance staff. This is a quick fix to a balance staff that was replaced that was too long, or someone replaced jewels that had the incorrect end adjustment on them. All these small things end up affecting the overall timekeeping ability of the original design. Balance staff pivot is tapered and rounded on the end. Roller jewel is broke but still functional. Balance staff hub isn't seated completely. I can see airspace between it and the balance wheel arm. Might be some of the source of the balance rim wobble we saw earlier. Rust where the balance staff hub and balance arm intersect. Roller table has signs of past surface rust on its polished surface. Looking at the balance screws, one thick timing washer installed here. The opposite screw has a thin timing washer installed. Matching timing washers should always be installed as pairs. Someone has ground the edges of the screws. They never left the factory like this. This screw has the edge ground on it, and it isn't seated completely. An unseated balance screw will affect the poise of the balance. Someone ground the edges of the balance screws to lighten it, then added timing washers to add back weight, a sign someone got in over their head on this movement and were desperate to get it to keep time again. Another unseated screw here, and multiple timing washers here. Another timing washer. Almost looks like a center punch mark on the steel part of the balance rim here, and two gouges in the brass part of it. Screw edge ground off here. Rust on the hairspring here. Balance screw heads have burrs on them where the edges were ground. Probably won't affect the timekeeping. The balance wheel is the major part of the escapement that could be considered the heart of the watch. There's multiple signs on this balance wheel that indicate that someone in the past had accuracy issues with this watch. Workmanship defects on this movement will need to be corrected before it will ever be expected to keep time again. I'll contact the client with my findings and see how they want to move forward on this Peoria pocket watch.